Sätts någon mjölkfett.
It's Death by Monsters!
Hello and welcome. This is Death by Monsters, a show all about monsters, mysteries, and the unknown. With me are my friends, dare I say colleagues? No, I daren't.
I dent?
I'm glad that you didn't do that the other way around. Here are my colleagues. Dare I say friends? Nope. That would have been more offensive.
To me, this is almost worse. I feel like, Matthew, you think we're worthless because you're like, no, you're not my colleagues. I do everything.
We help.
And so they're just people who are here.
Guess what? If you see a post on Instagram, more than likely, I'm the one who posted it. I contribute.
Here's the thing. Paula and Matthew do stuff. I don't do anything. I am total.
Whose names are Paula Deming.
Hi.
You know, we all contribute in our own way. We couldn't do the show without all three of us. Me and Nick proved that.
That is accurate, yeah. And to be fair, the reason why I haven't been as active in social media is because everyone's been sending us pictures of creepy dolls, and I literally can't go on Death by Monsters social media because of it, because it's really upsetting me. So
I feel like you may have just made that problem worse.
probably.
Thank you for all the engagement. It's been a lot of weird, creepy doll stuff. Love it.
Again, our Facebook group, by the way, is my favorite place on the internet. So
It's pretty good, even with the creepy doll pictures, most of which I have, in fact, been posting. I know we want to get to what our episode is about, but does everyone know what you're referencing when you say that the two of you proved that this podcast couldn't exist without the three of us?
No, but me and Nick did a few test runs with the two episodes
We did.
that never got aired.
yeah, we won't air them.
Because they were like, hey, there's just feels like something's missing.
I knew this is what you wanted to get at.
It be? And it turns out it was me. You were missing the sunshine.
I mean, Oprah wasn't available.
She wouldn't even reply to our email.
Look, if I'm the second choice after Oprah, I feel pretty fucking good about that.
That's great, right? You're doing okay. Yeah, no, we very much, there was something missing. We were great, obviously, but we were just like, there's something missing, and we didn't know what.
We need a talentless hack to put up
Yes.
next to us to make our talent shine even brighter.
Exactly, but Mike wasn't available, so we ended up, I love you, Mikey. No, and so yeah, we were just like, we need something else. We need someone else. We need something else. It wasn't enough. And then like serendipity, Paula just kind of came along at that point. Like that was just random. And then we all got talking. And then like a couple weeks later, we're like, hey, you want to record this? And she's like,
I've forced my way in
yeah, it was
to
great.
your lives by saying, hey, I heard you were making a podcast. Can I be on it?
I remember it slightly differently, Paula, but there's no need to go into it. Look, while this show doesn't exactly have a reputation of any kind, it also doesn't have a reputation specifically for being very down to earth. Look, this episode's about aliens.
I know, I'm so excited.
This show is about goblins, Paula, and today, more so than ever, I have to preface the show by saying, and I really mean it this time, this is going to get really fucking weird, really super quickly.
It does. It's a little weird.
The weirdest bit to me was in the video we watched about it. There was an illustration of one of the main characters shirtless in overalls. Like everyone in Kentucky just goes around shirtless with overalls. I found that to be an offensive Southern stereotype.
What I noticed about that man was how ripped he was. There are so many shots where he's like, oh, and I'm like, dude, what is your workout plan?
I think it's called being poor and having to drag your own water out of a well and herd your own animals and grow your own food.
I'm poor and I am not in shape.
Are you dragging water out of a well? Are you growing your own food? Are you herding?
Maybe. I'm dragging Taco Bell out of a bag.
It's farmer's strength.
Dude, that dude was ripped.
It's Sunday, the 21st of August, 1955. Lady and the Tramp is on the big screen.
Oh, man. Good, but also kind of actually problematic now, viewing it through a modern lens.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Like a lot of old Disney movies.
Elvis makes his debut.
Elvis also good, but kind of problematic knowing what we know now about whose songs he was actually singing.
Yeah. So few of them are his.
And as much as I feel that 1950s America was the dream I wish I could live, it was also just god-awful most of the time. But think of the milkshakes. They looked so good.
They did look better then.
They just milkshakes. You know milkshakes are better then.
Well, yeah, because they had less chemicals in them.
Whenever I see one of those old movies, they're like, I'll have a burger and a cherry Coke. And I'm like, God, that sounds like the greatest meal ever. But I've been to many burger places with cherry Coke, and I've never gotten that. But just something about the old time, I'm like, oh, it's probably better then.
Well, they probably made a cherry Coke. I don't know for sure, but I like to think they had a Coke, and then they just put like grenadine in it to make it cherry, and that's the best.
A Roy Rogers, yeah.
I want that right now.
Pretty great.
I think burger and fries is the greatest meal of all time, really. Well, actually, no, ice cream.
I would debate ice cream as a meal, but yeah.
Ice cream's a favourite food. It's the best food. I'd eat it all day, every day if I could. This week's episode is all about what was widely reported as the Little Green Men from Hopkinsville. But that is not as accurate as you'd hope from the trusty news of the day. Don't believe anything you read in papers, only believe the truth. The truth hidden away on the internet in flash-based websites that have weird music in the background with no way of stopping it.
Yes, the true scholarly source.
There's your truth, you knock.
Good old GeoCities website.
Yeah.
It's been up since 93.
Hasn't changed since 95.
I refuse to reformat this to fit on your modern screen. Each sentence is 3 yards long, where the real truth is. Anyway, the label of Little Green Men from Hopkinsville wasn't quite right. They weren't green, they weren't men, and it didn't take place in Hopkinsville. It took place in Kelly, Kentucky.
Truth.
Well, you just can't believe anything now, can you?
Believe us, though. We're going to weave you a web of lies.
Yeah, we're not the media. We're just like you, just three schmucks sitting in front of some microphones, just saying whatever comes into our brains. That's you.
Banana hammock.
Exactly, you see? We're not the media. Would the media say that?
They don't have the guts.
I appreciate what you're saying, Paula, but I did spend quite a long time writing this script.
We're not the media!
Kelly, Kentucky's entry on Wikipedia is 4 lines long, 3 of which are about the events of August 21st, 1955. But it has to be said that more than one weird thing has happened in that area. Kelly is about 20 miles north of Clarksville, Tennessee, which makes it walking distance of the Bell homestead that got all spooky in our Bell Witch episode.
Ooh, that's fun.
Do you think, is Clarksville, Tennessee, that's what that monkey song's about, right?
It is what that monkey song is about.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station.
And while I am deeply in love with small southern town America, even I think I'd go a little stir crazy in Hopkinsville and Kelly.
It seems pretty remote. There's just like no one around.
You know how I like to kind of do that thing where I tell you all about the little towns and things that go on? I can tell you that their city council meetings are every other Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Municipal Centre at 715 South Virginia Street. But that's about it.
Is that it? That's the only thing?
They're famous for growing some fine-ass black tobacco products.
Cool.
And Kelly has a Little Green Men Days festival. It's like right near my birthday. And if you think I don't want to go there, then you're crazier than much of how the next 45 minutes is going to sound.
Here's the thing. We've probably got a Patreon at this point.
Do it.
If you want us to road trip to the Tiny Little Green Men Festival, we'll go there.
I mean, this probably is the episode we're announcing that. So more on that later.
Hey, we're going to be doing some fundraising, as alluded to in a previous episode, I think last week's episode.
It's confusing.
We alluded to the fact that we were going to start doing some fundraising this year. And hey, surprise, that fundraising is going to help us do some fun road trips while Matthew is in the States so that we can do some in-person investigating of some spooky, mysterious, unknown topics. And who knows, maybe if we raised enough money, we could get plane tickets to go over to this festival.
Hell yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm down.
So more about that at the end of the
We
episode.
can pop over to see the Bell Witch, too.
They're literally on the same road, pretty much. So yeah.
Yeah, like we could pop over to Tennessee.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more officially at the end.
It's a late and mild August evening, just outside Kelly, Kentucky. Now, this is backwards country even today, so in 1955, we're talking the type of country life that made the Boondocks look like some kind of futuristic utopia, where love is used as a currency and all information comes in the form of erotic injections.
Oh dear.
Yes.
I'm uncomfortable.
There's so many words in that sentence that confuse and arouse me.
What I'm trying to say is that Kelly, Kentucky, to put it mildly, is a little bit country.
A little bit.
That's okay, because these aliens are a little bit rock and roll. sorry. That was a bad one.
Clutch. No, I'm proud of you.
At the Sutton Farms house that night were a bunch of people. There was Glennie Langford and her 3 children. There was Elmer and John Sutton, their wives Vera and Aileen Sutton. Billy Ray Taylor and his wife June Taylor were visiting, along with Aileen's brother O.P. Sutton.
Oh my gosh, I love this. The best Southern names
They really
in
are.
this list.
This is a great collection.
The variety of classic Southern style names, and I love it.
You got your double barrel Billy Ray. You got your Aileen. You got your OP. I mean, it doesn't get much more southern than that.
You got Elmer. Come on. Like,
You got June.
Yeah.
Somebody named after a month, especially a summer month.
All of which made for 11 people who are all about to become eyewitnesses to some freaky, freaky weirdness.
the clinical term, yes.
That's a technical phrase. I do research. I've scrolled the internet.
I have researched things.
I guess Matthew's the media.
Yeah, it's true.
He's using technical phrases.
This just in. No one cares about Matthew.
Not true.
We disprove that every single day, Matthew.
Before sunset.
We tell you that we love you until you're uncomfortable.
Before sunset, Billy Ray Taylor goes out to the well on the property to fetch a pail of water. So he walks out through what I have to assume is the peaceful hum of cicadas, the gentle glow of the flickering lightning bugs, and just a mess of ticks.
Yeah, you're not
The
wrong.
thick oppression of the August humidity.
Like a cloud of mosquitoes and a wolf spider that hasn't moved in 3 days, but it looks like it might at any second.
Yeah.
I love the South, but it does have its oh my God, an alligator snapping turtle. It does have its issue. He makes it to the well, thank God.
Somehow, through all of that, he makes it to the well.
But he lost an arm, and his machete is now just a blunt point. I've written he made it to the well with what remained of his blood. And throws in the pail. I guess I've never got water from a well, but I have to assume you throw in the pail.
Yeah, it's attached to a rope usually, and you chuck it in, and then you pull the rope on a pulley system, and you bring the water
Yeah,
up.
you kind of just toss it down there.
Who knows what comes up? Maybe a dead body.
You never know.
I love that concept of wells. They're just, I don't know, they're just creepy.
Unless you got a good pump well, like my great-grandma had at her place in Illinois.
That's devil worship, pump wells. Water should be got with the grease of your own hand, not the pump.
Well, I mean, you are, you're using your hand to pump it. I also, both times I've now referred to the pump, I have done a pumping motion that no one can see.
Yeah, I did as
Because
well.
I felt it.
While he's in the process of drawing the water, his attention is, to put it mildly, distracted by a large metallic object in the sky above the Sutton property. Now, not only was this object above the Sutton property, it was also soon to be very much not above it at all, as it was falling to earth at high speed, with a multicoloured trail behind it, or as Billy described it himself, a flying saucer, real bright, with an exhaust of all the colours of the rainbow.
They were just out there to celebrate Pride.
Real progressive.
In 1955, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they seemed so alien.
Okay.
That's where the term liberal bastion came from.
They're bringing peace, get him! That's a Simpsons quote, sorry. Quick, he's bringing love! Now, while I have to assume that Billy Ray Taylor wasn't what you'd call a city slicker, he for damn sure knew what a plane was when he saw one, and this wasn't one. It had no features other than being a metallic disc, and it moved silently. However, it didn't land silently, as it hit the earth in a gully about 300 yards away from the house in a field belonging to Gaither McGeehee.
Oh,
Good name.
that's a name.
It's a very strong name. Old McGeehee's land.
Oh, McGeehee.
Once he hits like Social Security age, yeah, his power increases.
Billy goes back to the house and tells the rest of the group what he saw. They do not believe him. Which is something, as a writer of this show, I appreciate, Billy.
If you're listening.
I appreciate you, Billy. I know it's like to tell us tale and for no one to believe you at all.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't have a reputation as a prankster, as somebody who's going to pull my leg, then maybe I would believe you.
Sometimes I don't even believe myself. That's the worst bit. In fact, the family weren't in the habit of taking much of anything Billy said very seriously, but due to the emphatic nature of Billy's description and the general demeanour of being scared shitless, they began to come around to the idea that probably he wasn't playing one of those classic Billy pranks, but that he might have actually seen something. But something doesn't technically, and I've had to just learn to accept this, something doesn't necessarily mean a spaceship.
That's true.
That's true.
You can see something and it not be what you think. Like, you can see a Bigfoot, but it's actually a bear.
Yes. Hashtag is a bear.
I'm so angry right now. After a while, Elmer Lucky Sutton agrees to accompany Billy out to the well to look out over old McGee's field,
God's great.
where he believes I'm going to call it a UFO, where he believes a UFO had landed.
Well, it's an unidentified flying object, so I think you can call it that.
You're not wrong, yeah.
I think it was falling with style, if I'm honest.
An unidentified falling object, sure.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. They wanted to see if there's any sign of a crash. At this point, it's now dark out, and after a short while, they don't see anything. The trigger for Elmer deciding, by the way, to go out and do this was that the family dog had started to bark violently at the back door before bolting under the house, where it would stay until morning, which was the smartest thing anyone did that evening.
Again, I know we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, but like an animal acting freaked out is definitely like a cause for concern as far as I'm concerned.
I've brought up multiple times, I trust animals way more than people.
Well, you could say like, oh, well, maybe it saw a coyote, or it could have seen like 16 raccoons doing like some kind of trapeze act or something like that, which would freak it out. But this dog, he lives on a farm in the middle of nowhere. It knows all the different things that are happening in the woods. So something new, something different. Aliens, that's right. This is where stuff starts to get real weird. Both for Billy and Elmer Lucky Sutton. They begin to walk back to the house and they see something out in the nearby tree line, glowing. Now, to reiterate, they are in what we commonly call in the United Kingdom the arse end of nowhere. So this strange, distant, glowing object that was moving ever closer to them, which was not a lightning bug, Nick, wasn't lightning bugs.
It could have been many of them in disc form.
It wasn't. Just wasn't.
You don't know that. You weren't there. This was
I
50s. You were
100% was
super
there.
not born yet.
I was there. But had it been a lantern or someone with a flashlight, it would still be out of place, moving towards the house at night. The light got to what is reportedly around 20 feet from where they stood.
That's so close to them. I'm amazed. That was when we were watching the video, and I was like, wow, they let that thing get real close to them.
Just wait for it. Or maybe just another minute. Just another minute. Run! When this light gets about 20 feet away, they begin to decipher its form. Now, the phrase little green man, which is pretty commonplace in today's culture, wasn't a thing in 1955. Not until right after this event, as Kelly, Kentucky is the birthplace of little green men.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I did lots of research. Even though that is not even close to what I'm about to describe. In the forest, 20 feet from where they were, they both see a small humanoid creature with thin legs and long, wiry arms and large, oversized, glowing eyes.
Of course. They always have overly large glowing eyes.
But this is where that stereotype comes from, I think.
Why is it there's some kind of alien that can see with sonar and doesn't even need eyes because their sonar is so in tuned, they just always look the same?
This is where it comes from, though. That's the thing. Yeah.
Is it? That's probably you're right.
Is it? I think so, yes.
The creature had large pointed ears and appeared to Billy and Elmer Lucky Sutton. Elmer, a man who was rapidly rethinking his boyish nickname.
Yep.
Because this creature was kind of floating towards them across the ground.
Wait a second. Is his nickname actually Lucky? I thought you were just saying that because you think they're lucky for having seen the aliens.
No, his nickname was Elmer Lucky Sutton.
I thought you were like making a joke this whole time, but that's just straight up his name. I get it now, though. It's like, yeah.
I was mentioning it as many times as possible so that the line that I wrote where he rethinks his boyish nickname would be funny.
Yeah.
So the description from the book Close Encounter at Kelly describes it like this. He was about 3.5 feet tall with an oversized head that was almost perfectly round and arms that extended almost to the ground. The huge hands had talons at the end of their fingers. The eyes were much bigger than human eyes and they glowed with a yellowish light. They were directed neither to the front nor to the side, but about midway between. The whole creature was seemingly made of silver metal and gave off an eerie light in the darkness.
Were they in a spacesuit? They were made out of metal? So we don't even know what they actually looked like if they were inside a spacesuit.
That is a really big part of this.
Yeah, it comes up later, I believe.
I'm sorry.
The whole creature was seemingly made of silver metal that gave off an eerie light in the darkness, like the light from a radium dial on a watch. The creature's hands were raised now, as if someone had told him he was about to be robbed. He was approaching the house slowly, moving towards the back door.
I'm just picturing this in my mind's eye, and it's upsetting.
Yeah.
They make their way eventually back to the house, where Glennie is waiting for them to ask them why on God's green earth they had been shouting like dock workers in the deep dark night, where they tell her that there's something in the woods.
Did she say dock workers, or is that what you said?
Well, I added, I like to add a
They're
little,
backwoods, Kentucky. They haven't been near a dock. They're in the mountains.
where they shout like bootleggers in the middle of the night.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
At this point, the others in the house still think it's some type of elaborate prank, but it's when both Billy and Elmer grab some guns to begin guarding the front and the back doors of the house that people start to think that maybe something might be amiss. Aliens.
Well, we'll get into it in a minute. I take some issue with the way they defended themselves, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yes. Glennie is also the first to start believing real quick as she sees a small glowing figure in the woods at the back of the house. It's then that Billy opens fire with his rifle, hitting the creature, which retreats to the forest. Billy goes after it, but as he gets to the porch, a hand grabs him from above.
Worst part. This is by far the worst part.
Yeah. So after a moment, Billy bursts out of the house and opens fires at the creature climbing on the roof. He hits it, though it doesn't do anything but create a metallic sound like hitting metal armor of some sort.
Like a spacesuit.
Spacesuit.
Ooh.
But it does cause the second creature to scamp its way back up into the woods as well.
That's right. America.
What part of that had any... Okay.
Yeah. What's American about that? Just the gun?
It just felt like an America, fuck yeah, just kind of moment, just shooting aliens in motherfucking Kentucky, America.
You can see him just shooting his gun off into the air going, I'm free!
Exactly. I don't know. It's just I don't know. It popped in my head, so I needed to say it.
It's at this point that JC also grabs a shotgun, with what I can only imagine is the sheer thrill of a man who's about to go monster hunting.
Yeah.
But then they decide on some type of plan of action. But as they're trying to decide what to do, they hear one of the children scream, as they had apparently seen another one at the window of the room where the children are hiding.
Can I just say, there is something worse about something just peering at you through a window than them even trying to get into the window. Do you know what I mean?
It's so freaking creepy.
Right? Isn't it worse?
It's giving me chills to think about it. It's so upsetting. Like, you're surrounded.
Like, you think it'd be the other way. Like, they like if they were trying to force their way in, you kind of like, okay, I got to plan an action. But if they're just kind of like staring at you through a window, I'm just like, that somehow is worse.
It's like a horror video game that is based on just survival or based on combat. If you have a horror video game and you can do something about the things attacking you, it's a lot less scary than a horror video game.
That's true.
Where all you can do is hide or run. You can't protect yourself. And I feel like this is kind of like that. Like, you don't know. If something's just peering in through the window, you don't know what it's going to do. And it's the unknown of that I think makes it more upsetting.
Yeah.
Well, I listened to someone say recently, and they said that watching Loading Ready Run, the Canadian...
You are such a Loading Ready Run fanboy.
You're loading rather run.
I love Loading Ready Run. I want to be friends with them all. I feel like I know them, and it makes me sad that they don't know who I am. It's fine.
They might, though.
They do not.
Tweet at them.
But they were saying that I was watching Let's Nope, where they do horror films, horror games, and they play through horror games. It's great. I love it. And they said the worst thing that you can do is if you're trying to have horror, is the second they give you a gun, all the horror goes out the game.
Yeah, because you have power now. You can do something about it.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, Mr. X is so scary in
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 when you were playing that.
Yeah. Oh, I just got like a deep feeling of unease just thinking about Mr. X.
Yeah, there's this game that my roommate will play. It's like it's an alien game, like an alien is in the movie Alien. And you're around a ship, and all you're trying, and the alien is just like walking in the background. You're just trying to hide. That's basically all you're trying to do. And I think there's a couple times where you can fight it.
Alien Isolation?
Probably. But it's like just out of nowhere. You don't know where they are, and it'll just like grab you or like stab you from behind. And then you like look down, you just see its like spiky tail through you, and then you're just dead. And it's like, it's an intense game. I do not like it.
Before I knew Paula, I did used to watch her stream video games just to make sure, because we kind of like we're talking when we were just in the preliminary, maybe we should do a podcast together. I was watching her stream video games to make sure she was cool.
And now that he knows, he never watches me stream video games anymore.
So, I mean, I know I'm up late, but it's always like 3 a.m. when you're streaming
Yeah,
video games.
it's tough, for sure.
This whole farce goes on for 2 hours. Some reports say it even went on for 3 to 4 hours of defending the house, shooting into the darkness at the windows as each time the creatures retreat, only to come back to different windows and doors, where they are shot at before retreating.
At least in the video I watched, it made it seem like, okay, they've got a closed glass window with an alien on the other side who's not trying to get in, and they just shoot through the window at the alien. It's like, you had a barrier of protection. Now, like, wait until the alien breaks your window and tries to come in before you shoot at it. Why would you, like, now create an opening into your home an alien could crawl through by willy-nilly shooting through all the glass on your property?
I really do like to think that if I came into this kind of situation, I would try to talk to the alien. And yes, it would probably do that thing that happens to Data.
Brent Spiner?
Yeah, Independence Day, and he goes into the thing and then he gets absolutely splattered against a wall. Yeah, that might happen to you. But you might also make an alien friend.
Here's the thing, though. Okay, I thought about this. Because at first I was like, these poor aliens, they crashed. Maybe they're looking for help. Why do we automatically, like, how would you feel if that was you and you were in a world or a country or someplace new that you didn't know and you were just trying to go ask for help? Now, here's the thing, though. As soon as someone starts shooting at me, I'm probably going to leave them alone. So the fact that they kept aggressively being around the house, even after violence was being acted on against them, that's when my sympathies change a little. Because if you were well-intentioned, I don't think you stick around at that point. I think you run and see if you can find help somewhere else. So that's where it gets a little like,
Okay, to be fair, though, if I can play a little devil advocate, these bullets, because of their either skin or because of their spacesuits, didn't really do anything to them other than just be like, holy crap. So maybe they came back because they were still curious, but they were just like, well, they don't have anything that can really hurt us. And so now that we're aware of this, like, you know, it's kind of like, it's probably just an annoyance that they would avoid if they can. But they're like, okay, but like our research is more important and we know they can't hurt us. They just kind of startled us the first time.
That still is a little bit of an act of, like, it's still kind of aggressive.
A bit. It's still very invasive for sure.
To be like, these people are scared of us. So, but we're going to do our research anyway, as opposed to we crashed and need help.
Yeah, but like animals are afraid of us and we do research on them.
Aww.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, for the most part, I actually agree with you. I think they come across more aggressive than not. I'm just trying to throw out another point. We examine and operate on animals and stuff like that all the time, and they're probably terrified of us. And so
Well, now I feel awful.
if they're a much higher being than us, they may think of us as animals. They may look at us and see us as like ants, like these really unintelligent beings.
Yeah, if my cat reaches out and like is swatting at me, but I'm like, no, I have to force you to sit here because you need to have your nails trimmed.
Yeah.
I guess I'm being aggressive toward an animal that is clearly doesn't want me around, and maybe that's how the aliens felt. Oh.
Let's just say nobody comes out of this great.
No. Nobody.
Bit of communication. That's all I'm saying. That's all we need. So there is a really detailed sequence of events in Close Encounters of Kelly, which is a book I mentioned earlier, which includes the men going outside to shoot the creatures. They shoot one out of a tree that floated to the ground before it scurried off into the woods. It goes on to talk about the fact that the creatures moved at such high speeds that it was impossible to truly tell how many of them there were, but the best guess is that there was a maximum of 4, and how at one point Lucky shoots one at such close range with a shotgun that although it did no damage, it did hurl the creature into the air before it ran off.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Langford, Glennie Langford, describes it this way. We thought the boys were only kidding, although they were coming into the house and telling about seeing and shooting at things. I did not take them seriously until 10 o'clock, when Aileen came in terrified, white, nervously shaking, saying that she had seen one of the little men. She was terribly upset, and her nervousness continued for several days. I suggested to the boys that we turn the lights out, which we did. I decided to see just what it was that they were seeing. I went out in the hallway and crouched down next to Billy and asked him, "Now, just what have you been seeing?" He replied, "Wait, you'll see."
Oh, what a horrible answer.
Yeah.
Wait, you'll see. No, I don't want to.
She was like sat to his right And when she looked at him, instead of just turning his head, he turned his head all the way around from the left. We remained crouched down there about 3 feet from the screen door, which was the front door, for about 20 minutes. When I saw one approaching the door, Billy and I remained crouching until it came right up to the screen. It looked like a 5-gallon gasoline can with a head on top and small legs. It was a shimmering bright metal like on my refrigerator. I tried to get up from the crouched position to move back farther from the door. I did not make it, as I'm heavy and my legs had become stiff from remaining in a crouched position for a long time. And being in the dark, I lost my balance and fell flat on the floor, making a thud-like noise and letting out a shriek. At the same time, this thing jumped back into the yard and Billy shot right through the screen. It then jumped up, we thought, right onto the roof of the house. As Billy went to the door to get another shot at it, the thing's clawy hand snatched at Billy's head. By that time, Aileen came through the door. She grabbed Billy by the arm and snatched him back into the house. By then, my son, Lucky, who had been guarding the other doorway, had also arrived at the front door. Coming through the house, he pushed out of the door past Billy and Aileen and shot at the thing while it was still on the overhang above the front door.
I hate everything.
This whole thing goes on until around 11:30 when they decide to make a break for it, and all 11 of them run to the trucks and drive out toward Hopkinsville to the police station.
How awful. I'm just like, to be holed up in your house thinking someone is like trying to get in or trying to harm you. You're surrounded by some weird, crazy, scary thing. And then to get so desperate, you're like, okay, we're just going to risk it and run and get in the truck and drive to the police and they'll help us. And I'm just like upset by the whole story.
Yeah.
And then the police were aliens, and then it was a whole thing.
Yeah, that's really that's the natural progression.
They talked to the desk sergeant, who were probably not totally convinced of their story of, we've been fighting little silver men for hours, which is the exact thing that they said, but they do dispatch to the house. So 4 police, 5 state troopers and 4 MPs from Fort Campbell go to the house. Because at the very least, Lucky, Billy and JC had just unloaded 100 rounds inside a house with 5 other adults and 3 children in it.
Yeah, like that's the part, that's nuts to me. The damage to the house.
At the very least, they've just shot this house to shit.
And the aliens didn't even try to get in, according to any of these accounts. They just stayed on the threshold.
Take me! I would have just gone.
That's it. I feel like they could find many willing participants.
Oh, just put a post out.
But maybe they think their research would be skewed because the people are willing, you know? It's like, I don't know. It's maybe they want normies, you know, they want some muggles.
I don't know. I just think it takes a lot of effort to find the people who are willing when you could just go wherever and just take whoever you spot.
They seem to not really care about personal privacy or anything like that. They seem to not care too much.
I think that human meat tastes better when it's got the taste of pure fear running through.
That's awful.
The police find that indeed the house had been, technically speaking, shot to shit. But they don't find much of anything else. One of the officers reports seeing something glowing in the distance, but they don't find anything. And then they reportedly did find a weird glowing stain on the ground near where one of the intruders had been hit. But it's 1955. So other than going, there's a weird stain here, there's nothing much that can be done about it.
Was it weird yellow foam that no one had ever seen before?
I thought exactly that when I was doing this, and I was like,
Wouldn't that have been cool if that's the description it had
That'd be
been
cool.
given? Like, that would have been a cool coincidence.
And someone's like, I know foam. And that's not foam I've ever seen before.
I'm a man who knows his foam, and I'll tell you now, I'll tell you something for free. This ain't no foam I've seen before. Some of the neighbours also say that they saw some lights in the woods and that they'd heard the gunfire. One quote from the police chief Greenwall said, who had his own alien experience years before, by the way, so he was slightly more open to this type of line of thinking before because he saw a UFO in the sky. Something scared these people, something beyond reason, nothing ordinary. These aren't the kind of people who normally run to the police for help. When they feel themselves threatened, what they do is reach for their guns.
They shoot stuff, yeah.
Right, which they did, yeah. Yeah, because why would, especially if they're like backwoods people, like they're not going to expect that the authorities are going to help or respect them at all.
Yeah.
They just rely on themselves.
They just kind of go, I've got me well, I've got my gun.
Yep.
I will defend this land and shoot all the aliens.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's all they had.
The police in general were all seemingly struck by the fear exhibited by the family. When Greenwell received the call to come in, it was because a sergeant had called his house to say, a spaceship has landed at Kelly. I'm not joking, Chief. The state police are sending units there.
I'm not joking.
Nope, not Joe. It's not one of my pranks. They are legitimately sending people there.
Dave, this phone call better be good. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm very tired.
Don't worry, it's not a joke.
It's not one of Billy's classic pranks. I like that he said, "I'm not joking, Chief," as if he had in the past done a little bit of joking.
Done a bit of pranking, a little bit of.
A spaceship has landed in Kelly, and this time I mean it. During the investigation that night, which lasted several hours, the mood had changed in even the skeptical officers to that of an anxious air. Greenwall now. In and around that area, the house, the fields, that night there was a weird feeling. It was partly the uneasiness, but not entirely. Everyone had it. These were men that I'd call brave men. Men I'd been in dangerous situations with. They felt it too. They told me so, adding, "Someone stepped on a cat's tail. The cat yowled. You never saw so many pistols unholstered so fast in all your life."
It is interesting to think about, this is what, 1955? So depending on how old these men are, they probably all served in World War II.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
They've seen some shit.
A while later, one of the key inquiries came from Bud Ledwith, a radio engineer and announcer from WHOP, which I listened to for a while, and while I wrote the script, and just to get in the mood, it's fine. But he and Mike Lackey, the son of the station owner, went over to do some questioning. Lackey was being there because he wanted to make sure that the questions were told in a non-biased and leading way. And also, they were there to make some sketches. There was a bunch of sketches made. They are just fantastic.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'll put them up on Instagram. I'll read some of the annotations now. Floppy large extended ears, considerably above the crown of the head, pointed at top. Miniature feelers or antennae on each side of the top of the head. Hands wide with talons, arms long, almost touching the ground. Feet circular, like suction cups.
Ew.
Pretty good.
I mean, they can grip onto things,
They don't need to though because they float.
That's a good point. Why do they have those?
Why do they need feet at all?
That's also a good point.
Life's weird.
It's true. Life is weird. That's the new name of... Get that on a t-shirt.
Life is weird. Dead Monsters. TM.
And it's just like a picture of Paula doing that thing where you put both of your hands under your head and you kind of go,
Well,
that's
life's weird.
That night after the investigation, the creatures returned for a while before leaving again, as to the whole family. And after a few months, the family leave the house forever. Gladys moved to an apartment in town where she said she felt safer. JC was apparently so shaken up by the experience that he couldn't hold a job down after the encounter.
Wow.
Yeah. Ugh.
One of the explanations of the naysayers for this encounter is always going to be that they were accidentally high, group mania or psychosis, poisoned or tainted liquor, because you have to assume they were doing some fierce home brewing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty offended by I was offended by the idea that this dude was shirtless in overalls, which maybe he was, but it just seems like such a stereotype. I'm pretty offended by the idea that whoa, they were just drunk. What, just because they're backwoods Kentucky people, they're just drunk hicks? I don't buy that.
Well, absolutely. And I'll say this now, Mrs. Langford wouldn't even let liquor into the house, and she was actually more upset about the fact that the papers had printed that they could have been drunk than they were that they were crazy.
Yeah, because crazy isn't a sin.
Yeah, I mean, they said that there's no evidence of the fact that they were drinking.
That's one of the things from the investigation. There wasn't just a mess of bottles and loads of cans of...
They happened to be brewing moonshine at the time.
I mean, tainted alcohol could make everyone go a bit crazy, but the kids saw it as well, and they just weren't drunk when they turned... They weren't drunk when they turned up to the police station, for starters.
Yeah.
You would know.
Yeah. The cops would be like, go home.
You're lucky you made it here in that truck. Actually, sleep it off in a cell for the night, and then we'll send you home.
That's one thing that I haven't seen mentioned, but yeah, it's true. It's that if they were drunk for the whole thing, they would have been drunk when they got to the police station. It doesn't make any sense that they'd all just sober up from having a wild gun battle in the middle of the woods in some kind of strange psychosis to being at the police station and being not drunk.
Also, I feel like if they were drunk or under the influence of something, how come none of them got injured in any of this gunfire?
Yeah.
Why didn't they accidentally shoot one of their kids or something? Because they were the same height as these supposed aliens. You know what I mean? Why is no one actually hurt?
That's a very good point. It makes sense that if they were seeing things and it all was made up and it was some kind of mass psychosis of some description, that someone in a house, because I looked at the blueprints of the house, it wasn't a large house.
I'm sure it can't be huge.
It was one story for starters, and you'd have to assume that whilst people were shooting off hundreds of rounds through windows, someone probably would have got injured during... It doesn't make any sense that... No, yeah, I totally agree.
It's not the first time, but thank you.
Yay.
I do want to mention the sci-fi films that were popular in 1955. There were films like Conquest of Space and The Quatermass Experiment. But while these films don't have any telltale little green men trope that we have now, that's because the popular culture goes, it's the events at Kelly, again, that mould that narrative. The popular culture was monsters like King Dinosaur, Godzilla, and I've never heard of King Dinosaur, but it sounds great.
Sounds fun.
Not as great as The Creature with the Atom Brain, all released in 1955. Did I watch trailers? Of course I did.
Well, now I want to watch the trailers.
Impressions?
King Dinosaur. Watch it now. One of the main skeptic theories is it was monkeys.
Is that real? I'm sorry. Wait, what?
Monkeys.
No, that can't be a real theory.
Monkeys, Paula.
I think it's a real theory. I believe it.
Why monkeys? Because the circus was in town.
Oh my gosh.
Late on Sunday, it's thought that a group of trucks belonging to the King's Circus went west through Hopkinsville. And a few miles west out of town, the trucks were stopped in order to exercise the camels and the horses. One truck, according to this theory, got lost in town. Let me tell you, Hopkinsville in 1955 was not a town big enough to get lost in. Not the point. But they instead accidentally turned down US 41, the road that leads between Hopkinsville and Kelly. The truck stopped to let the monkeys out, where a few got loose and found their way to the Sutton property.
Yeah, those monkeys in the circus who wear metal suits and can't be damaged when you shoot them with a shotgun.
I believe this one.
Ooh.
I'm adopting this theory.
You are adopting the monkeys. There's less evidence to support this than there is
I don't know.
that a spaceship landed near the house.
How many monkeys have you touched?
Why are there no dead monkeys?
Metal skin.
He's got us there.
He's got
Damn
us
it.
there.
They were alien monkeys. They needed a job.
They were monkeys from the freak show of the circus.
Yeah, and they were like, "Look, we need a convenient way to travel around because we can't constantly travel around in our spaceships. People are going to see it. We already had an issue with it, so we need a way where we can go town to town to town and pick up people, terrorize random rural homes." And so they joined the circus as some fancy monkeys. And then they just were like, "Oh, no, I'm going to go out for the night." And then they go terrorize people, and then they come home.
I like the idea that they're on a spaceship, right? They're blasting through space at 1 billion miles an hour. And they're having a meeting on the bridge, or they're in the captain's quarters, and they're just having a quick conversation. They think, we need to go undercover on planet Earth. What's the best way we can do that? And one of them's just like, hey, I'm just shooting the shit here, but how about we there's no bad ideas, right? How about we all dress as monkeys?
When did the first Planet of the Apes come out? If it had already come out, then they could be like, I saw this movie.
Yeah, right.
They have monkeys just walking around like in protective suits and stuff. We could do that.
I just love the idea that they're just like, we could dress as monkeys, and everyone's like, that is genius.
That, or they go, we can't think of anything better, so I guess this is what we're doing.
Or one of them goes, look, let's face it, we look a bit like monkeys. We might as well dress as monkeys.
We have the general stature of a monkey,
Yeah, we've got massive eyes and we float, but monkeys kind of do that.
People will be like, "That's not what monkeys look like," but it's like, we'll go to 1950s Kentucky, and be like, "I don't know, they're from South America. They're South American monkeys."
They don't know what monkeys look like.
All I know is this wasn't monkeys. I do not believe that for a second. Next theory.
How about the good old-fashioned hallucination theory?
I like this one.
But as we say, there's no evidence of drugs or a large quantity of alcohol at the house. And as I mentioned before, Miss Langford was really annoyed that people said they were drunk.
And again, if they were hallucinating, why isn't anyone actually injured? Why didn't anyone freak out and kill another person? You can't say the Dyatlov Pass happened because of drugs or hallucinations and they all killed each other, and then turn around and say that the same thing caused this, but no one got hurt. False.
No one is saying there is monkeys in the Dyatlov Pass.
Well, they'd say the Yeti.
I'll add this classic idea of ergot poisoning for good measure here. I didn't find that this theory come up, but it certainly wouldn't be out of the blue for that type of thing to happen in a closed area to a family in that part of the world. Remember, this is 20 miles from the Bell Witch House.
Yeah, and we did like that theory for the Bell Witch, so...
Ergot sure as hell is one heck of a good theory in that case. And there's the fact that the whole area is above miles and miles of mines and cave systems, so the release of some undetected gas could have caused a mass delusion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's plausible.
Plausible? But is it as exciting as the theory that it was all just a practical joke by Billy Ray?
I don't believe that.
And that his storytelling and acting was so convincing that he lured the rest of the family to believe that something was happening that night. And that, paired with the ensuing hysteria, created false memories in the other witnesses.
That is, again, why? Why do that to your family? That is so much effort for what
Because of that
payoff?
money.
How much money did they make from this story?
They made some later on because they did eventually start charging people to come to the house for a while. But the reason for doing that apparently was because after this happened, there was what can only be described as a real circus. The media circus!
Man, that's when the monkeys showed up.
That's right.
There was, I mean, this blew up across the papers and stuff. It was a really famous case, and they did... It's kind of a sad story. I'll just go into the last one, and that's the idea that it was a hoax, right? Either to make money or selling the story and charging people to come to the house and telling all that they wanted to scare the neighbours that they're having a feud with or that they just did it for fun. But this whole thing caused them so much grief and bother. It's not something that went well. First of all, they trashed their house that they lived in by shooting it up. That's some dedication.
It really is to this.
Yeah, that's some overhead that you now have to hope you make enough money from the scheme to cover all of that and then actually earn a profit.
Look, you gotta spend money to make money.
Wow.
That's right.
That's why I'm gonna shoot up our house.
I was like, I think we could invest in something a little. How about just like some mutual funds?
If I shoot it, they will come. The media just tore into them and made them seem like they were fools and idiots because their story, when they went to the police, was that little silver men came from space to attack them. It's not as though they had... It was so fantastical that I just can't... I mean, if it was like a ghost story or something like that, and certainly that would have made more sense than saying, hey, there was aliens. Because they don't find an alien craft, the craft that landed. They don't find any evidence of aliens. There's no bodies. There's just a weird shimmering stain. That was all they find. And maybe a bit of like out of place aluminium foil and stuff. But ghosts, you can hide. You can say, well, the ghost just isn't here right now.
Right, yeah. You're like, well, there isn't any evidence because ghosts, you know?
Yeah, it's like ghosts would have just been so much easier to cover up. And you could have done all those weird fun parlor tricks and charged people to come in. I think they're making it up. Aliens in 1955 is just not the first place you go, right? Surely.
But maybe they wanted something different. And there's a reason why there's like no evidence of they're there. That's because they hopped back on the trucks and they were on to Gatlinburg for the next circus.
That is where the next circus would have been. They'd have gone right past it. They'd have taken what would it be? They would take a left at Clarksville and straight on to those Blue Mountains.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong though. It's like, it's a bit suspect. It's why would they choose aliens is really, I think, the main question. It's like, why would they choose that over something else that, you know, probably would have gotten more traction, but at the same time, maybe because it was aliens is why it got so much traction.
That's true. That's very true. It certainly made the papers because it was aliens. I will also say that this is prime Brown Mountain Lights area, really, kind of. Well, it's in roughly the same part of the world, rather. It's not in the same state. It's about 300 miles away, but, you know, still.
I mean, that's just a couple-hour drive. I don't think that they made it up. I don't know why. I can't see the benefit for the effort that went into making this up. I don't know what it was. I guess are we ready to talk about like what we really think? I think I might not be that skeptical of this. Like I think maybe I can't think of a reasonable explanation for what happened, so I'm inclined to believe that they're telling the truth.
Something had to have happened. I don't think it was a hoax. They left the house. They moved out. They left.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be in that area anymore. And while maybe they were all just huffing some mad mine shaft gases, but it doesn't make sense that they would expose themselves. I have to imagine they're probably quite a closed community of a family. You know, they live in the middle of nowhere. They expose themselves so much to such criticism from everyone. And they didn't make much money off it. I think Glennie Langford eventually wrote a book about it, but it was like years and years later. And no one really benefited from this situation.
Yeah.
So after I watched the video that you wanted us to watch for this, in the video they talked about like they did some news stories. And I was like, I wonder if YouTube has some of those news stories they originally did. Can I find original interviews? And I looked around and I couldn't, but I didn't look that hard. But I did find a local news story done in like probably the 80s or maybe early 90s. It was an older local news story where they interview one of the grown-up kids from the incident who was like, yeah, I'm talking about it now. And he stuck to the story. And he was like, if at this point, like it's the 90s or whatever, it's 40 years later, I feel like you would get more media attention if that's what you're after by saying like, we made it all up. Because then the story would be like, this famous thing is a hoax. Here's our proof, the family member who admits it. And instead he was like, no, this is what happened. We saw the thing. My mom, my grandma did this. My mom did this. Like it was, I don't know. Like what's the reason for holding on to the story this many years later if it isn't true? Unless, as a kid, you just believe that it was true because you were a kid and you weren't really in on it to begin with. So, as far as you know, it is true, but...
It's just that you've always known it to be true because everyone said it was true for your whole life.
Yeah.
They all seem to keep to the story.
They do.
You know, Billy Ray's the only one who really deviated from the story, but it wasn't deviating from the story. It was more that he embellished the story. He was a known storyteller of sorts, and... He was that kind of guy that would say, he added a lot to the story, but Glennie was annoyed that people said 20, 30 creatures. She was saying, no, there was 4 at maximum, and she was more annoyed that people were embellishing the story than not keeping it true. She didn't want it to be more, she just wanted people to know the truth.
Yeah, I don't know. This one is interesting. And honestly, like I've always wanted to do aliens on this show, or more aliens rather, because aliens are the one thing to me that like I don't really believe in monsters. I don't really believe in ghosts, all that kind of stuff. I'm just pretty out on. But aliens is the one thing that, not that like I necessarily believe in. There's never been anything that's been so convincing that like I've changed my mind about it, or think that aliens have necessarily been here. But again, as we've spoken about multiple times, I think it's absolutely ridiculous to think that there's no other life anywhere. So whether or not that life, and if it's intelligent life, has been here or not, I think is up for debate. But I think saying that there's no chance that in the entire universe there's no other life is just absolutely silly. So the aliens, the one thing that I can kind of wrap my head around, because I'm like, I believe in extraterrestrials. Whether or not they've been here, I don't know. And so aliens is kind of the one thing that I'm the most open to, I suppose. And this one, there is a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know. With a lot of these things, the problem with all of these things is like, there's no pictures of it. There's no videos of it. It's just, you're just going off people saying that this is what they saw. And you essentially have to believe them or not, and that's kind of the problem with a lot of these stories is you're just going off of faith. You either believe them or you don't. And with this story, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I'm like, I don't necessarily think that aliens came to Kentucky, but at the same time, like, there is no real reason for these people to be consistently lying about this. So maybe, I don't know. This is one I'm kind of more on the fence with.
Well, maybe they didn't come from another planet. Nick, maybe they've been here the whole time.
What?
Ooh.
Maybe they came up from the subterranean world.
They're actual goblins.
This story does not end here.
Nope.
This is only the beginning of the mystery.
Oh, whoa, we're saying that at the end of the episode.
Wow.
There will be a part 2 to the Kentucky Goblins. But it won't be for a while because I want to mix it up. I didn't want to do a long 2-parter, and this was a kind of an encompassed story in its own right. But there will be a part 2 to the Kentucky Goblins.
Cool. I don't know anything about the part 2, so I'm excited to find out what the rest of the story is.
I know I said this at the top of the show.
Does it get weird?
It gets so much more weird.
Yeah, it gets pretty. I accidentally watched the documentary already for the second part, and it gets weird.
Well, I look forward to it. I look forward to this podcast finally getting a little bit weird.
Also, definitely not owls.
So that, I guess, if Matthew's done, I think that is the story of the Kentucky Goblins, at least the first part. Thank you so much for listening. We have some exciting things in store for you this year. If you're listening to this when it releases, it is now 2020. 2020, however you want to say the year. I'm open. We're now in the 20s, which feels weird to say because I think of the 20s as the 1920s. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The exciting part is that we are going to be doing some fundraising. We are going to do this specifically because we have some activities that we want to be able to do. So this summer, Matthew is going to be spending some time in the States. In fact, specifically the great state of California with Nick and I.
Yeah.
And we have some really cool things that could be topics for future episodes that we could all go and investigate in person together while Matthew is here. We want to go, for example, to the Winchester Mystery House. We might want to continue on up and investigate the area where the famous Bigfoot sighting video happened. What was that called, Matthew?
Justin Schmear's Fake Adventure.
The town is called like Willow Creek, I
That's
think.
the Patterson Gimlin footage.
Yeah, we can go. That's in California, y'all. We can drive on up north and investigate that. We could even, if we wanted, go a little further, hit up Washington State and do some cool D.B. Cooper stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, we could go to that bar! Yes!
Yes, we could. All that stuff, of course, costs a little money. So we are hoping to do some fundraising for those specific goals and some other fun things this year. And we're going to go on and do that with a Patreon because we think it's the easiest way for us to turn our fundraising also into community building. So we now have a Patreon, which you can go to patreon.com/deathbymonsters. So check that out if you feel so inclined. Look, if you can't or you don't want to, that's totally fine. The podcast is not going to stop happening if we don't hit those fundraising goals. It's just going to adjust to the content that we put out.
The best way you can ever support us is always going to be through trying to grow the show and to tell new people about it. And if you can't donate or anything like that or support us in financially, then that is totally cool.
It's totally fine. The podcast won't go away. We're just hoping to do some fundraising to help us hit some specific fun topics we'd like to cover in a specific fun way. We could still talk about all those things without making a road trip to the Winchester Mystery House, but wouldn't it be awesome if we could go there and record like from the drive up, or like, you know, take video of us investigating it? That'd be pretty sweet.
It would be pretty cool.
If I'm going to live my goal of hugging Justin Schmear and saying, well done, I don't agree that you should have killed that Yeti, but I'm glad that you've told the tale, and I believe you, first and foremost. But I'm going to need some money because I don't live in America.
So thank you so much for even listening to that spiel about our fundraising, about our Patreon. We appreciate all of you so much and everything you've allowed us to do already with what we've done with the podcast in 2019. We're excited for what the future holds for us. Just share the podcast with a friend if you like it. Leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. Join us on social media. We've got a Facebook group. We have an Instagram. We've got a Twitter. We have a website that will link you to all of those things, deathbymonsters.com, and will also take you to our merch store. All of the merch purchases also help us with this fundraising. So thank you, everyone who's already done that, and we're going to have some fun new things hitting the store at some point, and so you can get excited about that. What else, y'all?
Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye, I guess.
I guess bye.
I guess so. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.